3 years ago, a fleet of warships surround a small island. They don't bother firing conventional weapons. The crew knows they would have no effect on the monsters on the island. Instead, it's a fight for the hunters to handle. Men and women bearing swords, shields, daggers and magic bravely face off against gigantic ants, but the low-rank hunters are overwhelmed by the attacking monsters. All hope seems lost until a hooded man leaps into the fray. He heals one of the badly hurt hunters as his two allies take care of the remaining beasts. During the fight, a giant white ant challenges Yunho, who easily defeats it. Soon after, more white ants join the fray against Yunho and Yunseok. Nearby, Choi Jong-in watches the forest battle from a city, launching a fiery assault on a group of advancing ants, then signals his team, Hunter's Guild, to advance. 10 years earlier, gates linked to an alternate dimension suddenly opened around the world. At the same time, new magical abilities capable of taking on the monsters awakened in some humans. Those people became known as hunters. Their powers remain at the level they awakened, never growing any stronger. In a construction site, the infamously known weakest hunter, Sung Jinwoo, arrives to join the other hunters in the raid that soon begins. Despite being the weakest, Jinwoo is not disliked, but seeing him called in for a job means that the raid will be an easygoing one. Sung greets Lee Joo-hee, a healer he's worked with before. She's dismayed to see his injuries from a previous job and reminds him to be careful. He sits down and chats for a brief moment with her, regardless of the risks of continuing to work as a hunter due to his lack of hunter abilities. He's not bothered being called the weakest and tells her he's used to it. As the raid gets underway, Sung checks that he has his weapon. It's a low-power knife, but it's all he could afford. Gaining confidence, Sung Jinwoo is the last to enter the portal. Elsewhere, the Korean Hunters Association chairman, Go Gun-hee, discusses the finer points of dungeon raids with his assistant, Woo Jinchul. Go tells him that the resources found inside, essence stones collected by defeating magical beasts, are in high demand by the current administration. Back in the dungeon, Jinwoo is overjoyed when he finds his very first essence stone. But his happiness is short-lived as a magical beast attacks him. The raid team defeats the dungeon boss, a werewolf, and celebrates as they loot, while Jinwoo watches from a distance, recovering from his wounds. Then, Jeongo discovers a cave entrance to a rare double dungeon and shares the news. The team decides to vote on whether to explore it for more loot. Jinwoo holds the deciding vote on whether to enter the cave, while Joo-hee votes against it. Jinwoo is the sole earner for his family. His dad is missing, his mother is in the hospital, and he's helping pay for his sister's college education. He needs the money, so he votes to go into the depths of the dungeon. To Jinwoo and his team, as they trek through the cave for 40 minutes. Jinwoo apologizes to Joo-hee for his decisive vote to enter the cave, which led to their current predicament. Joo-hee, visibly frustrated, admonishes Jinwoo for repeatedly endangering himself, recalling the difficulty of healing his wounds last time. Eventually, they reach the end of the tunnel and encounter a massive door. They decide to open it and venture into the unknown room beyond. As Jinwoo and his team entered, the giant room inside began to light up with blue flames. Expecting to face magic beasts and rare loot, the team is confused as to what the place appears to be with all of the ancient statues and instructions. Joo-hee notifies Jinwoo that she just caught the biggest statue in this room staring at them, with him assuring that she must be seeing things. Out of the blue, the door loudly shuts itself, making one of the team members to leave in a hurry as he tries to push the door. But to their horror, one of the statues guarding the entrance brutally slaughters him with its weapon before getting back to its position. Horrified to witness the statue coming to life, the team members are left speechless, leading Jinwoo to turn around and stare at the biggest of all statues that Joo-hee warned him about. Suddenly, the gaze of the giant statue shifted towards him. Reacting just in time, Jinwoo screamed for his comrades to duck as the statue's eye began to unleash an attack. Paralyzed in fear, Jinwoo's comrades ask each other what to do upon witnessing the traumatizing death of already two of their members before Cheol warns them not to move to not make the statue launch another attack. Jinwoo tries to talk to Joo-hee, who is too traumatized to move by what she just saw. Jinwoo helps him stop bleeding, and Chiyol says that he estimates the statue to be A rank if not S rank due to its ability to insta-kill, comparing it to his past experiences as a hunter. Chiyol then remarks that the commandments aren't there for fun, and begins listing them. First, thou shalt worship God. Second, thou shalt praise God. Third, thou shalt prove thy faith. Those who do not follow these laws will not leave alive. Jinwoo then realizes God refers to the giant statue. In the dungeon, Chiyol and Jinwoo deliberate over how to tackle the 3 trials presented by the statue of God. Frustrated by their predicament, another hunter, Ju Jae-hwan, who had recently secured a contract with a prominent guild and believed he had too much to live for to die in the dungeon, attempted to run to the door, claiming speed as his specialty. However, he is instantaneously disintegrated by a beam of light from the giant statue, with only his 2 feet remaining. Jinwoo decides to test the statue upon being reminded that the first commandment is to worship God. He stands up before backing down nervously, causing the statue's eyes to flick to him, begin to glow, and stop. Seeing that his thoughts were correct, he yells at the other survivors to kneel to the statue and explains that the statue will only incinerate those who are at or above a certain height. Once everyone bows, the giant statue's expression soon shifts to a sinister grin. Seeing that the statue has changed but isn't moving, Park Byung-shik stands up and is glad to see that the statue remains motionless. Believing it is over, the rest of the party stands up, but is shocked to see the statue doing the same as it now begins to walk toward them. Thinking of the second commandment, thou shalt praise God, one of the members states he's a student of ethnology and that he has a few installments for gods. He then begins speaking to the incoming statue with the prayers he knows. The hunter is soon crushed by the feet of the statue as the statue's smile widens, signifying that those prayers weren't right for this god. Jinwoo soon figures out the meaning of praise relates to HYMS, however the music had to come from the statues, so he orders the survivors to run to the statues holding instruments instead of weapons. Chiyol confirms his suspicions as he gets to a statue holding a trumpet and it begins playing. Sangshik also gets to one and rests and breaks down in tears a bit in front of the statue with a violin as it starts to play. Jinwoo drags Ju-hee to a statue of a drummer and quickly realizes that the statues will not be activated if 2 people are standing nearby, so he leaves Ju-hee to the statue and looks for another statue holding instruments. As Ju-hee reunites with Jinwoo, she realizes he has lost a leg and quickly resorts to healing him despite her lack of mana. After the rest of them catch up, Sangshik reminds Chiyol that he holds responsibility for the life of their dead comrades, which he promptly and depressingly agrees to despite the other party members' protests. Then there is a rumbling in the chamber and they all turn to see that the giant statue made a stone cylinder appear at the center of the place. Jinwoo explains that it is an altar which in ancient times was used for sacrifices. Sangshik then remarks that Chiyol should use this time to take responsibility for the fallen. Jinwoo also thinks during this time that it was a group decision, so no blame should fall on one person, which he easily agrees to do so and walks to the center, activating a flame. Back at the dungeon, Jinwoo asks everyone to meet on the altar. The survivors are shocked to see a circle of blue flames arise around the original 6 flames, and the dungeon door open once Sangshik and Ju-hee entered the circle. At this point, all statues begin moving toward the still frightened group, despite Jinwoo's instruction for them to not leave the circle and to keep their eyes open. Seeing that the open door is a trap, the 2 members who were helping Jinwoo stand left in fear. Now with only Ju-hee, Chiyol, and Jinwoo left, Chiyol attempts to stay behind, but Ju-hee collapses and while in shock states that her legs are not moving and finds out that she's used too much of her magic. Jinwoo tells Chiyol to take Ju-hee out because he can't walk and hands the essence stone that he got earlier to Ju-hee, telling her to buy food as he had previously promised to take her out to eat. As Chiyol leaves while carrying Ju-hee unconscious, a desperate Jinwoo grabs the sword that Sangshik left behind and speaks in his thoughts about his unfortunate desire to become stronger like others. A blue flame goes out and an interface appears in Jinwoo's mind, asking him to either accept or decline to become a player, stating his heart would stop in 0.02 seconds if he declined, with Jinwoo accept. Following his traumatizing experience in the double dungeon, Jinwoo unexpectedly wakes up in a hospital. To his surprise, his body is recovered, including his left leg that's now healed and intact, believing that his experience in the dungeon was just a dream. He is visited by Wu Jinchul and Kong Taeshik, inspectors from the Korean Hunters Association, who reveal he has been unconscious for 3 days. Jinchul tells him that he and his comrades only found him collapsed on the floor with no signs of the statues the other survivors depicted. He then interrogates Jinwoo if he perhaps received a second awakening, which could potentially elevate his class rank from E rank to A or even S rank. They prompt him to test his mana by placing his hand on a mana meter presented by Taeshik. Excited to see the result, he asks the two-man what rank he is now if he has been reawakened. Jinchul apologizes as they may have made a mistake upon seeing that the machine indicates his score as 10. Soon, Jinwoo's sister Sungjina enters to express her worries. However, Jinchul apologizes and suggesting they were mistaken as the meter displays a mere score of 10, dashing Jinwoo's brief hope of advancement. Feeling remorseful, he subtly tries to determine if she can see the system message floating before him. Once he realizes the message is visible only to him, he curiously asks how one might address unread notifications, comparing it to a video game. Gina, initially confused by his query, suggests checking his inbox before leaving to meet her friend, Han Song-yi, who awaits outside. Alone, Jinwoo delves into the cryptic messages from the system. The interface, bathed in a futuristic blue hue, displays 2 notifications, one stating the system's role in aiding player development, and another warning that failure to comply may result in a penalty. At the Hunters Guild building, Choi Jong-in assigns Cha Hae-in to participate in the next B-rank raid. Hae-in, unconfident in her leadership skills, is assured by Jong-in that she has what it takes for the role. Elsewhere, civilians find their evening disrupted by the sudden emergence of a gate in the midst of a road. Meanwhile, Jinwoo is sleeping in his room peacefully at the hospital, oblivious to the ticking clock of the daily quest he dismissed as a farce. He is jolted awake by the rumbling that he believes to be an earthquake before finding himself in a vast sunless desert. A new message tells him to survive for the next 4 hours as he encounters an enormous centipede that began to pursue him. Back at Jinwoo's room, while Jinwoo navigates this perilous environment, 2 nurses in his hospital room discover his absence and initiate a search. For a grueling 4 hours in the desert, Jinwoo barely survives his chase from the centipedes and is found exhausted by the nurses at the hospital. The next day, Jinwoo sports himself in a tracksuit as he informs his sister that he will be heading out. Jinwoo sits down as he completes more of his quests and begins to understand the functions and rewards he receives. Back inside his room, Jinwoo this time receives a special reward that grants him a key that leads him to the Hapjeong subway station for an instance dungeon. A news reporter presenting today's Gate report announces that the Hunters Guild will be handling the dungeon that emerged on the road. Meanwhile, Jinwoo is seen visiting his comatose mother, Park Kyung-hae, triggering memories of when he first found out she had fallen victim to the eternal sleep disease. Jinwoo continues his workout routines in the following days his past, his early days working in construction and the moment he became awakened, including the time when was qualified to become a hunter to earn money to support her pay the bill for her hospital bills. He recalls a time where he was rescued and then chastised by fellow hunters, who would tell him to stay in a corner while they cleared the dungeon, dismissing his right to a share of the rewards due to his lack of strength, for which he would sincerely apologize. With his new ability points, he devotes them all to strength. After gaining confidence and determination, Jinwoo decides the time has come to use the mysterious key he acquired. Hesitating to enter, he inserts the key in a door that activates the entrance of the dungeon in the subway. However, as he enters he discovers that he can no longer escape and that he is trapped in another dimension from the real world. As he explores the dungeon that is an abandoned hallway, he soon confronts a couple of goblins. Frozen in fear and with no healer to rely on, Jinwoo faces the grim reality of his perilous situation. As he rests a bit, a steel-fanged Raikin emerges from behind. Jinwoo scrambles for a plan, as the wolf approaches at an alarming speed. In despair of facing the wolf magic beast that appeared abruptly after having just defeated a bunch of goblins with his dagger now broken, Jinwoo discovers that he has gained impressive agility that allowed him to dodge the steel-fanged wolf. He takes the courage to fight back, but to more of his surprise, he is now capable of sending a powerful blow to the magic beast, sending it flying against the wall. However, Jinwoo knows that he will not be able to take down the animal bare hand. He tries to flee as the beast chases him and thinks for a weapon to use. He discovers that he has access to his inventory provided by the system, allowing him to take out the sword that he got at the double dungeon that was left by Kim Sang-shik to kill the wolf. Now alone again, Jinwoo checks for his stats and acquires items instead of magic gems, which he uses to sell to obtain currency in the program. Now thinking how to defeat the boss of this dungeon, Jinwoo spots countless of more steel-fanged Raikens that emerged out of the dark. Determined by courage, Jinwoo rushes to dispatch more of the wolves and coming out victorious, slaughtering all of the beasts. He checks his inventory and grabs one of the items he just acquired, a teleportation stone, before walking down into the hallway of the dungeon. Outside, Lee Juhee picks up a call from the Hunters Association notifying her that the gate had a dungeon break. She feels guilty about rejecting their request and agrees to participate as she listens to the person on the phone saying that they are lacking healers. Back in the instance dungeon, Jinwoo realizes he has grown stronger, now understanding that the colors of the magic beast's titles reflect their strength relative to his own. Despite his doubts about facing the dungeon's boss, he bravely descends the stairs he encounters. Initially greeted by silence in an expansive sewer, he soon detects water waves rushing towards him, signaling an imminent threat before being slammed against the wall. Recovering, he faces the dungeon boss, the snake magical beast known as Blue Venomfang Kasaka. Standing up to proceed with the battle, a flashback appears of Jinwoo's conversation with Song Chi-yeol telling him that he has been nicknamed as the weakest hunter and encourages him to work harder to prove the wrong. Kasaka relentlessly dominates the battle, propelling Jinwoo through a wall with its formidable strength. Despite multiple attempts to penetrate the snake's scales with his broken sword, Jinwoo ultimately abandons the weapon, opting instead to leverage the enhanced strength from his heightened stats. Through sheer force, Jinwoo eventually manages to exert enough pressure to kill the beast. He acquires the Kasaka's Venom Fang, a dagger made from the boss's fangs. The snake's corpse along with the dungeon disappears, reverting the instant dungeon back into the Hapjeong subway station. As he takes the stair to exit the dungeon, he is spotted by a soldier who scolds him for being here before realizing that he is a hunter and guide him out of the sight. As he follows the soldier, he asks him if magic beasts have got out after a dungeon break. The man replies that most of them were killed with a giant one left, which is something that Jinwoo could feel and detect its location as a result of his enhanced senses granted by the system. The massive blue stone golem is being fought by a group of hastily assembled E and D rank hunters, struggling to even breach its defenses. Behind a military barricade, civilians, including Jinwoo, watch the scene unfold and take pictures. The onlookers appear almost to taunt the hunters, displaying a mix of annoyance and disdain towards the unfolding dungeon break. Jinwoo quickly realizes the hunters are outmatched by the beast and notices Juhee among them, struggling with her healing magic due to the trauma from the double dungeon. He readies to throw the broken sword from Kim Sang-shik that he wielded against the previous boss. As the hunters teeter on the brink of defeat, Jinwoo's sword pierces the golem eye and defenses, turning the tide and enabling the hunters to vanquish the monster. Spotting a broken sword amidst the debris, he inquires of a nearby soldier about who launched the sword that struck the golem. The soldier responds that it was the work of an unidentified hunter from the back, who has since disappeared. Meanwhile, Jinwoo, having already departed from the scene, muses that the golem might have been weakened before his sword throw. Juhee catches a glimpse of him in an alley and wonders if he was the one responsible. News show where he chats with the host. The host mentions the rarity of S-rank hunters, highlighting that there are only 7 of them, before shifting the conversation to Beck's life outside of the dungeons. Surprised by his new look and asks if he's been working out lately. Observing the results of his training, she notes that Jinwoo takes a moment to review his daily training quests, focusing on strength, agility, and perception after defeating the dungeon boss. However, his contemplation is interrupted by a phone call from his landlord, reminding him of overdue rent. Determined not to inconvenience anyone. Resolving to settle the bill immediately, he realizes he needs to find raid work to earn enough money. This prompts Jinwoo to increase his stats before delving into online searches. Jinwoo's reputation as the weakest hunter precedes him, and Huang shushes the other hunters as they start to laugh about it. Jinwoo joins as an E rank. The leader assures him he's just there to fill out their hunter quota so they can enter a C rank dungeon. They'll do all the fighting. Jinwoo notices there's no healer, which is odd, but coming from above. Just as he warns the group, a swarm of ant-like monsters attacks. He holds his own thanks to his pricey armor. But something feels off. Stones, and a sleeping giant spider. The leader, Huang, thinks of showing up his little brother with this haul. Jinho, looking out for Jinwoo, Huang Dong-suk and his team of lizards leave the dungeon's gate, planning to sneak back through the upper side tunnels after the formidable giant arachnid Bariura has handled Jinwoo and Jinho. Their conversation reveals a selfish motive, to loot around 1 billion, carelessly risking a dungeon break. Outside the gate, Dong-suk cynically researches Jinho's father, Yu Myung-han, plotting to feign sympathy at Jinho's funeral should he perish. In the C-rank dungeon boss's lair, with a very angry spider looming, Jinho suggests that they find an exit instead of fighting, considering one needs to be at least B rank to solo a C rank boss. Yet Jinwoo, undeterred by the danger that surpasses that of Kasaka and the stone golem he defeated before, refuses to retreat. With a defiant smirk, Jinwoo surges forward to engage the spider, beginning his assault to Jinho's astonishment. Despite his relentless efforts, Jinwoo's dagger, Kasaka's venom fang, fails to penetrate the spider's tough exoskeleton. He doesn't give up, striking repeatedly and nimbly avoiding the powerful blows from the arachnid's legs, yet his attacks make no progress. Witnessing the speed and skill of Jinwoo, Jinho is rooted to the spot in shock, unable to fathom that Jinwoo could be merely an E rank. Jinwoo is quickly getting fatigued by using his speed and agility for his relentless attacks. He can't find a weak spot. Suddenly, he runs out of stamina, and the magic beast lands a hit. Just before it makes the killing blow, Jinwoo accepts the full recovery reward granted by completing his dailies. Re-energized, he leaps in the air and pierces the spider in an eye. The weapon's paralysis and drain effects do the rest, and Jinwoo gains a few levels when the dungeon boss falls. Jinho plasters a fake smile on his face and calls Jinwoo boss as he offers him a bottle of water. Jinwoo doesn't understand why he's acting so strangely. The raid party appears in the tunnels above them, surprised to see them both alive. Back in the boss lair, the treacherous lizards return. They mistakenly believes that Jinho must have defeated the spider using his expensive gear. Dong-suk then presents Jinho with a sinister ultimatum, kill Jinwoo to save his own life. However, Jinho refuses to betray Jinwoo. In response, Dong-suk commands his group to eliminate the weaker hunter first. At this moment, a system message appears, charging Jinwoo with the task of slaying the 6 murderous hunters. Amidst this tense situation, the mage Q1 seizes the opportunity to launch a magic attack on Jinwoo while he is distracted, launching him into the dungeon wall. Back in the dungeon, Jinwoo lies in the rubble from Cho Q1's attack and thinks about how their world encourages survival of the strongest. The system is telling him to kill other humans or he'll die himself. Why does it want to keep him alive? He pulls himself up to stand, deciding that if the system wants to use him, he'll use it in return. Juntae, a traitorous D-rank hunter, confidently approaches Jinwoo. Jinwoo recognizes that he's now a murderer, even if he's just obeying the system, but can't back down. He kills the others, leaving just the C-rank party leader Dong-suk. Jinwoo easily dodges Dong-suk's attack and takes him down with one hand. He'd been leveling up the entire time. The desperate hunter pleads for mercy, but Jinwoo emotionlessly replies that Dong-suk attempted to kill him 3 times. Jinwoo removes his head, and the dungeon begins to close. Jinho and Jinwoo make it safely outside. A representative from the Hunters Guild is surprised that the D-rank and E-rank hunters were the only survivors, but assumes it's because of Jinho's high-quality equipment. As rain begins to fall from the evening sky, Jinwoo is glad he gave his sister an umbrella that morning. At their apartment, Sung Jina is excited to see her brother Jinwoo returning home with some fried chicken, able to cover their mother Park Kyung-hai's hospital bills and rent. As they relax in the living room, Jaina asks Jin-woo how the raid went the other day. During this tense moment, Jaina asks if everything is alright, and Jin-woo reassures her. While drinking alcohol, Jin-woo is notified by the system that he is being detoxified from the effects of the beer, prompting him to leave Jaina with the rest of the food he brought, including an unchecked reward, Kandyaru's blessing, which he received when he first became a player after surviving the double dungeon. Later, beer cans on his desk, but Jin-woo reassures her that he's fine as he leaves to meet Jin-ho. At Cafe Peen, Jin-ho once again expresses his gratitude to Jin-woo for saving his life from Hwang Dong-suk and his lizards. Despite Jin-ho's request to recruit him for a strike team, Jin-woo initially declines, stating he does not have time to spend humoring some trust fund kid. However, Jin-ho persists and explains his ambition to become a guild master, which requires participating in 20 raids, with the last one being his first. Father plans to establish a guild with an S-rank hunter as the leader, and he will reveal his secret, but if he accepts, he will take it to the grave. Jin-woo responds with a death stare and leaves without a word, unmoved by the plea and leaving Jin-ho distraught about the two survivors from the insect dungeons, and confirms the death of his older brother. Believing his brother was murdered, Dong-soo crushes his phone in anger. Pay for their mother's hospital bills. Jin-woo agrees and then picks up the pace. Jin-woo completes double the daily requirements, and the system message displays a secret quest, the reality doubling skill called Rage, for 3 minutes. Jin-woo uses full recovery and downs a healing potion, but his rage expires and Jin-woo is finally able to do some damage. Despite being trapped in its jaws and down to his last hit points, Jin-woo stabs the beast. His rewards include a key to the castle itself and the recipe for the elixir of life. The 3 components await inside the Demon King's castle. Jin-woo promises he'll be back to claim them. Sung Jin-woo watches over his mother, Park Kyung-hai, in the hospital, suffering from eternal sleep disease. Determined to heal her, he plans to get stronger before attacking the Demon Castle for the ingredients of the elixir of life. The next day at Cafe Peen, he agrees to join Yu Jin-ho on 19 dungeon raids, who is elated to hear, but only if they go in the gates alone. While Jin-ho notes that gates require 8 hunters minimum, Jin-woo tells him to hire hunters to fill the quota, similar to how Hwang Dong-suk operated. Jin-ho agrees, as he will be able to impress his father by clearing the gates with 0 injuries or deaths. After her training at a track field, Cha Hae-in senses a man watching her during her break. After being called out, he approaches, introducing himself as Yu Byung-gil from Eugene Construction, and hands her his business card. They talk about the company's plan to establish the Eugene Guild, considering her for the role of guild master. After completing his daily quest, Jin-woo discovers he can't overclock the requirements to get the key for the Demon Castle as he did before, ending up with a worthless bingo card instead. Now at level 26 and wandering the city, he considers hunting the giant centipedes he faced in the penalty zone for experience. However, he quickly dismisses the idea, doubting his strength and if they do have rewards. Just then, a notification pops up from the Hunters Association, calling hunters for an urgent D-rank dungeon. He considers declining as won't be alone, but eventually says it's better than nothing. At his home, Kim Sang-shik watches his daughter Yunji play with a teddy bear when he receives the notification for the urgent raid. His wife expresses deep concern, urging him to quit hunting, especially after the harrowing double dungeon incident. However, Kim, holding Yunji close, insists on going, highlighting the financial strain their family faces, with Yunji starting kindergarten and their older daughter Yunha about to start middle school. At the Hunters Guild headquarters, Guild Master of the White Tiger Guild Baek Yun-ho was invited by Choi Jong-in, the Guild Master of the Hunters Guild. Baek expresses his annoyance about being put on a morning show interview, a segment he felt was more suited for Choi. Despite Baek's frustration, Choi maintains his cool and steers the conversation towards the newly forming Eugene Guild. They quickly realize they both know about it and the potential threat it poses in terms of poaching their hunters. Lee Joo-hee finds herself in a tense conversation with her mother over the phone, offering only minimal responses. When her mother suggests she quit and return home, Joo-hee loses her patience, sharply telling her mother to stop controlling her life before abruptly ending the call. Wrapped in the solitude of her bed, she's haunted by doubts about her place and worth. Amidst these reflections, her phone buzzes with a notification for the same D-rank raid that Jinwoo, Cha Hae-in pays a visit to Choi's office, arriving just as Beck is leaving. They exchange respectful bows, acknowledging each other's status as S-ranks. Inside, Hae-in shares with Choi that Eugene Construction approached her with an offer to become their guild master, an offer she declined. Choi expresses his relief at her decision. The discussion took a serious turn when Choi revealed his plan to reconquer Jeju Island, the site of devastating raids that resulted in significant loss of hunter lives. Beck's thoughts linger on the island and the loss of Yoon-seok, a comrade who died there. In the early morning light, Jinwoo sets off for the urgent D-rank raid, with his sister Sung Jaina bidding him farewell. She comments on how much he's been working a lot lately, noting the significant change from the days when he returned from every raid injured. During the walk, Song catches sight of Jinwoo and can't help but be taken aback by how much he has changed. The once gentle-looking boy seems to have transformed. As they reconnect, Song is surprised to see Jinwoo's leg, which had been severed during their last encounter in the incident, now fully reattached, thanks to the system. As they reach the gate, Song is taken aback by the remarkable coincidence of reuniting with fellow survivors from their traumatic experience at the Double Dungeon. The atmosphere becomes tense as Kim and Jeongdo, burdened by the memories of abandoning Jinwoo, avoid eye contact. Amidst this uneasy reunion, Joo-hee stands out with her unmistakable joy. This unexpected reunion is abruptly interrupted by the arrival of the rest of their strike team, which includes 3 C-rank hunters in handcuffs. In the cave depths of the D-rank dungeon, goblins are mercilessly vanquished by the prisoner hunters who are loving it, overseen by their Hunters Association escort, Kong Taeshik. After the battle, Song comments on how Jinwoo has really gotten stronger, and how he has a nice new dagger now. At a dungeon fork with 3 paths, Taeshik proposes splitting up to speed up their quest, given the ease of their encounters so far. The team agrees, and Jinwoo, leveraging his high perception, identifies the boss's location and opts for the left path with Song and Joo-hee. As they diverge, Taeshik casts a thoughtful glance at Jinwoo, curiously, who notices. Considering Jinwoo's pivotal role in their survival that day, Kim finally decides to apologize for abandoning him after this dungeon, as it has been eating up at him. Jeongdo questions the likelihood of forgiveness, but Kim is determined to apologize regardless. As the convicted hunters ruthlessly dispatch the goblins, Taeshik observes them casually with his hands in his pockets as they kick a severed head at his feet. Taeshik remembers a secret encounter in a dimly lit room where a distraught father details how these same 3 hunters had assaulted his daughter, leading to her tragic suicide and his wife's hospitalization due to the shock. The father presents Taeshik with 3 billion won, $2.4 million, to assassinate the prisoners, criticizing the justice system that would eventually set them free through reduced sentences from raid participation. In the dungeon, Taeshik coldly concocts a plan to deceive the inspectors, alleging 100 goblin swarm overpowered them as he turns on the prisoners. Just then, Kim and Kong witness the B-rank hunter decapitating the final convict. Unfazed by their arrival, Taeshik approaches them with a menacing demeanor as he says he has to alter his plan. In the left tunnel, Jinwoo recalls that Taeshik Kong was one of the Hunters Association investigators who visited him in the hospital. Just then, he hears a scream echo through the dungeon. His group races to find the other hunters sliced to pieces, including Kim and Kong. Kim, barely alive, struggles to breathe. Joo-hee can only heal him enough to let him speak. An emotional Jinwoo yells at Kim that he has to survive so he can keep blaming him for what happened that day in the double dungeon. Kim chokes out that he's sorry and that he regrets that he can't offer a proper apology. He takes his last breath. Taeshik uses the opportunity to strike at Joo-hee from the shadows, but Jinwoo grabs his arm in midair. Taeshik tells the shocked hunters that he plans to fabricate a story about the prisoners killing them. Song asks Jinwoo to stand back and picks up Kim's sword to defend his friends. Song parries Taeshik's first strike. As an assassin-type hunter, the B-rank Taeshik is fast and agile. The cruel hunter gives credit where it's due and remarks that Song is skilled with a sword. Taeshik launches another attack on Song, slicing him again and again, and Ju-hee is too upset to use her healing abilities. As Taeshik approaches him for the final blow, Song springs his trap and unleashes his fire magic, engulfing the other hunter in flames. Taeshik, slightly singed, dodges the attack with a sly smile and gives the older hunter credit again for his strategy. He raises his dagger to finish him off, and Jinwoo blocks it, to Song and Ju-hee's surprise. Taeshik gives Jinwoo his full attention. That there's no way Jinwoo is an E rank with those reaction times. Jinwoo isn't a false ranker, he surmises, since he's obviously been on raids with Song and Ju-hee before and allowed them to live. It must be a second awakening. It doesn't matter, Taeshik concludes, as Jinwoo's lack of hunting experience puts him at a disadvantage. Taeshik grins wickedly and attacks. His bloodthirst triggers a system message with the same quest Jinwoo received when the malicious group of hunters turned against him. Taeshik is shaken for the first time. He's never heard of a combat hunter who can also use healing magic. When he recognizes Jinwoo as a fellow killer, Song and Ju-hee gasp. Jinwoo activates his murderous intent skill, blinding Taeshik long enough to pierce him through the heart. As he dies, Jinwoo reveals to him that he gets stronger with every battle. Taeshik warns him to be careful of the darkness that will follow. He dies, and the system rewards Jinwoo with the stealth skill. Ju-hee and Kim leave the dungeon while Jinwoo finishes the boss. Investigator Woo Jinchul arrives, blaming himself for not seeing his subordinate Taeshik's true nature. He gasps as he recognizes Jinwoo from the hospital. Woo asks which of the three hunters defeated Taeshik. Just as Jinwoo resigns himself to his secret getting out, Song claims responsibility. Considering that Song is a C-rank magic user who had the help of B-rank healer Ju-hee, Song smiles and tells Jinwoo he owed him one, and he returns the smile. After completing another eventful raid, Jinwoo and Lee Ju-hee take the opportunity to catch up during a leisurely walk through a serene park. Ju-hee, a B-rank healer, confesses her belief that her timidity might not be suited for the life of a hunter anymore. However, she expresses gratitude for the lower-ranking raids that led to her meeting Jinwoo, admiring the unwavering determination in his eyes despite the numerous injuries she had to heal. Ju-hee returns the E-rank essence stone Jinwoo gave her the last time they met each other. Alone, Jinwoo thinks back to a warning Woo Jinchul gave him after the raid, concerning his previous dungeon incident. Woo mentioned that S-rank hunter Hwang Dong-soo might want revenge for his brother Hwang Dong-suk's death. He suggested Jinwoo and Jinho, the raid's other survivor, should be cautious or even consider leaving the country because the law is powerless to deal with S-ranks. Jinwoo sees this as another reason to grow stronger, understanding that he wouldn't stand a chance at his current level. Later, Jinwoo and Jinho meet with their unique strike team of lower-ranked hunters at a glowing C-rank dungeon gate. Jinho picked 6 hunters with various reasons preventing them from working regularly, including injuries, lack of experience, or personal issues like alcoholism, meeting the required 8 hunter minimum for a C-rank gate. The duo then proceeds into the C-rank gate alone, after Jinwoo forces Jinho to take off the ridiculous set of high-rank armor he was wearing. However, he was allowed to wear the helmet at least. The rest of the strike team, skeptical and somewhat dismissive after receiving their payment, waits outside as told. Their astonishment is clear when Jinwoo and Jinho reappear only an hour later. The team's initial thought was that they had fled, but it turns out the pair managed to clear the dungeon quicker than the usual 2 hours taken by an average strike team for a C-rank gate. Motivated by their swift success, they plan to proceed to the next gate, aiming to tackle 3 dungeons a day, leaving their teammates in awe. In the following dungeon, Jinwoo swiftly defeats a group of goblins while Jinho collects all the mana crystals close by. Jinho witnesses the stealth skill in full effect and is taken aback by its effectiveness and Jinwoo's significant growth in strength. At the White Tiger Guild headquarters, the news of Jinho spending a huge sum of 150 million won, $121,500 on rights to C-rank gates catches the eye of manager On Sang-min and his assistant Hyun Kichul. On remembers Sung Jinwoo's name from the infamous double dungeon incident and is immediately intrigued. Considering Jinwoo's narrow escapes from 3 dangerous situations, the double dungeon, Hwang Dong-suk's strike team, and Kang Tae-shik's attack on suspects, that Jinwoo might have gone through a second awakening. An and Kichul reach the C-rank gate entrance and are surprised to see a group of mismatched hunters lounging outside, similar to a picnic. Han Song-yi comes over and informs them that the area is restricted, and they are surprised that she is a hunter too. An deduces that Jinwoo is tackling the dungeon solo, which further fuels his resolve to recruit him, as he would be a major find for them. The two decide to leave but stop to discreetly listen in as Jinho and Jinwoo exit the gate. Jinwoo requests a day off to tackle the job quest. Elsewhere, Guildmaster Choi Jonghyun is tormented by visions of his fellow hunters consumed by fire, with a gigantic ant looming over him as he kneels helplessly. At day's end, Jinwoo bids farewell to his strike team before being approached by An and Kichul, who aim to recruit him for the White Tiger Guild. Over coffee, An boasts about their prestige as one of the best guilds in Korea and offers Jinwoo double what Eugene Construction promised. However, Jinwoo's deal is worth 30 billion won. Caught off guard and unprepared, An mentions needing approval for such a sum. Jinwoo, showing his Eugene contract, gets ready to leave but stops to confront An about prying into him, his tone sharp and warning as he places a hand on An's shoulder. Jinwoo reappears, apologizes for taking all the gates, and offers to sell 3 for 300 million won each. Despite the shock, An sees the need for these gates to train his guild's new members. Eventually, he agrees to buy the 3 gates for a total of 600 million won, $486,000 US. Jinwoo instructs An to open his mouth and shut his eyes, then administers a health potion that immediately heals the cut. As Jinwoo departs, An muses that Jinwoo might be an even bigger deal than he initially thought. The next day, the White Tiger Guild realizes they have been duped. Other C-rank gates were available on the market in their jurisdiction, priced at 70 million cheaper than what he paid Jinwoo. A text from Jinwoo then arrives, suggesting they're square, hinting at this being retribution for spying on him. Though outmaneuvered, An finds solace in now having Jinwoo's contact information. As dusk falls, Sung Jinwoo retreats into the solitude of the woods. Abruptly, a vast purple void gate, alive with lightning, appears before him. On the brink of entry, Jinwoo remembers he forgot to do his daily quest, but he decides it can wait until after. Deep inside the shadowy corridors of the dungeon, a knight stands silently in wait. Back in the dungeon, Jinwoo navigates a corridor and everything appears unexpectedly normal until he receives a notification informing him that in this area, the use of potions, full recovery, and access to the store are prohibited, and he won't be able to recover his stats upon leveling up or leave until the quest is completed. Jinwoo braces for another fight as more knights advance toward him. During the tense family dinner, Jinho's meal remains untouched as his father attempts to ease the atmosphere, inquiring about Jinsung's progress with forming the Eugene Guild and their struggles to recruit an S-rank member. Jinsung reveals their attempts to enlist Cha Hae-in and Min Byung-gyu were unsuccessful, leading him to seek an S-ranker from Europe and the Middle East, reminiscent of Hwang Dong-su's situation. Suddenly, he addresses Jinho's C-rank dungeon escapades and his ambitions, warning him not to go against his own guild plans. In the thick of battle, Jinwoo tirelessly combats one foe after another using nothing but his physical prowess. However, he quickly realizes that even his stamina has its limits. As the relentless assault wears him down, Jinwoo acknowledges the need to enhance his intellect attribute to effectively counter mages, and wishes to conserve his own skills, all while battling growing fatigue. At the Hunters Guild, guild leader Choi Jonghyun gets ready to board a helicopter with Cha Hae-in and other high-ranking hunters. Jinwoo finally finishes off the last of his enemies and finds a B-rank chest plate on one of the corpses. He equips all of the armor in his inventory for the first time, and he's delighted to see, or not see, that the pieces are invisible. He pushes open a massive door and a gust of wind greets him. When Jinwoo sees his opponent, he can't help but be reminded of the mysterious double dungeon. Knight Commander Igris the Bloodred, a foe clad in plate armor as bright red as his overhead name, Jinwoo is intimidated by his mere presence. Igris raises his sword and then launches himself toward the hunter with lightning speed. Stone pillars crumble with a swing of his blade. Jinwoo does everything he can to defend himself, but it's clear he's outmatched. He puts away his dagger, which can't pierce Igris's armor, and his enemy sets down his own weapons to keep the fight fair. Meanwhile, at the Hunters Association, Wu Jinchul enters Chairman Go's office for a chat. Choi calls to thank Go before they leave for Jeju Island. Go credits him with keeping the island in the public eye to gain support for the mission. Back in the throne room, Igris grabs Jinwoo and throws him into the ground in the blink of an eye. The hunter barely blocks the falling barrage of punches and survives the onslaught thanks to the armor he equipped. Jinwoo activates his dash skill and attacks, but he still can't catch Igris the Bloodred. Igris easily throws him around the throne room. Jinwoo counterattacks, finally landing a solid kick to Igris's throat. Enraged, Igris increases his attacks, landing another blitz of punches and kicks before finally tossing Jinwoo into the wall above the throne. Igris calls his sword to his hand for the final strike. Jinwoo catches the blade in his hand and yells that he's not finished. He calls his own weapon, which he manages to stab into Igris's eye. He recalls the dagger again and impales Igris through the throat with all the power he can muster. Igris falls. A system message notifies Jinwoo that the enemy is defeated. Jinwoo considers his victory a fluke since he was clearly outmatched as he looks at his rewards, which include the S-rank helmet Igris was wearing, a rune stone for the skill ruler's hand and a teleportation stone for the next round of battle. Jinwoo is shocked to discover he must make it through even more relentless waves of enemies. The longer he lasts, the more advancement points he gains to spend on a higher class. Just as Jinwoo reaches his limit, however, an enemy knocks the teleportation stone from his hands. Knights surround Jinwoo as climax of the quest comes near. Jinwoo finds himself thrown across the throne room and hitting a pillar hard. Surrounded by endless knights and without his teleportation stone, he is desperate and pushed to his physical limits. With no mana left for his skills and his fatigue peaking, Jinwoo fights back with everything he has left, using just his bare hands. Night after night are felled, but they just keep coming. Haunted by memories of being called the weakest hunter of all mankind, Jinwoo hears the mocking words of his past comrades. This haunting vision of his former self confronts him, criticizing his efforts and urging him to accept that he's reached his limit. As a night looms over him, ready to deliver the final blow, Jinwoo is struck by the déjà vu of his harrowing experience in the double dungeon. This moment, teetering on the edge of life and death, mirrors his trials at the Cardinal Temple and how the system saved his life. And it was about to do it again. As Jinwoo faces what seems to be his final moment, his past self cryptically remarks, "It seems they don't want you to die just yet," before fading away with a promise to return. Jinwoo finds himself transported to the penalty zone. He appears in a vast desert under a blazing sun, surrounded by red clouds and endless sand. Licking his wounds and pondering his fate, Jinwoo questions whether luck or the system itself intervened to save him. He's abruptly confronted by 6 enormous desert centipedes bursting from the sands. These foes, though formidable, no longer pose the threat they once did at his current level. Back in the tranquility of Jinwoo's apartment, his sister Jaina is momentarily stirred from her slumber by a vague, unsettling dream. Back in the penalty zone, Jinwoo defeats dozens of centipedes, leveling up and restoring himself to full health. He has a moment to look for a new weapon to purchase and finds a dagger, Night Killer, that has a damage bonus to armor. Jinwoo also redeems his ability reward from fighting Igris the Bloodred, Ruler's Hand, which is similar to telekinesis. He's ready to return to the fray. Choi Jong-in and his team of hunters approach the airspace of Jeju Island. The pilot detects mana from the water below, to the team's surprise. With the penalty quest over and Jinwoo all healed up, the hunter is teleported back to the throne room where the knights have increased tenfold. He begins his onslaught against them and realizes he never levels up when fighting them. This leads him to the conclusion that these knights were merely summoned monsters, and the mages were the true monsters that he had to finish off. He quickly finds a mage and uses a new skill, Dagger Toss, to kill a mage, causing the knights that were summoned by it to crumble. Jinwoo catches his breath as a system notification appears, informing him that he lasted 4.5 hours. The job change quest is complete. The system determines that based on his performance and solo fighting style, the most suitable job for Jinwoo is Necromancer, which has the ability to call forth a shadow army. Aghast at the idea of becoming a magic user when he's been fighting as an assassin type, Jinwoo's first instinct is to refuse the job change. Jinwoo accepts the job change to Necromancer, but the system isn't finished yet. Notifications pop up one after the other in front of Jinwoo. Because he lasted so long through the final stage and defeated all enemies, the Necromancer class has been upgraded to Shadow Monarch. To extract a shadow and claim it for his army, Jinwoo must speak the command word he chose, Arise. He calls forth 30 shadow soldiers, the maximum number allowed for the skill at current level. Shadow extraction can fail, however, depending on the target's strength and the time it was defeated. Jinwoo realizes there's another enemy nearby he can try to add to his army's ranks, Igris the Bloodred. Jinwoo commands the Knight Commander to rise and fails twice. Only one attempt remains. Jinwoo names Igris the Bloodred to simply Igris. Igris joins the ranks of the Shadow Army, and they kneel before Jinwoo. The helicopter has landed on Jeju Island. Choi gasps as he looks at the magic beast that he and his hunters defeated. The gigantic ants they faced 3 years ago have evolved and now bear wings.